Pursuant to Chapter 551, Title 5 of the Texas Government Code, the Texas Open Meetings Act, notice was given that the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, in accordance with Article 5, Section 12 of the Charter and of said city, would convene a regular meeting on Tuesday, January 4th, 2022 at 5 p.m. at the Brownsville Public Library Main Branch Meeting Room located at 2600 Central Boulevard, Brownsville, Texas. Pursuant to Section 551.127 Texas Government Code, one or more commissioners or employees may attend this meeting remotely, video conferencing technology. The video and audio feed of the video conferencing equipment can be viewed and heard by the public at the address posted as the location of the meeting. Members of the public, employees, and the city commission may join via the WebEx teleconference meeting link provided by the City of Brownsville at the City of Brownsville Agenda Center. This notice and meeting agenda were posted online at the City of Brownsville Agenda Center. The members of the public wishing to participate in the meeting hosted through WebEx teleconference can join at the numbers provided on the agenda. Members of the public who submitted a public comment form will be permitted to offer public comments as provided by the agenda and as permitted by the presiding officer during the meeting. A recording of the meeting will be made and will be available to the public in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. So it is now 5:07 p.m. I show we have Mayor Mendez in person, Commissioner Cowan in person, Commissioner Gowan in person, Commissioner Galansky in person, Commissioner De Los Santos in person, and Commissioner Cardenas in person. And I was trying to see if.
I believe Commissioner Tetra will be missing today's meeting. It's her husband's birthday, so happy.
Okay. Okay, so Mayor, you may call the meeting to order.
We'll officially call the meeting to order. Welcome everybody that's here in person and those that are watching at home. Thank you.
Okay, our next item is invocation by Pastor Brad Burks.
Before we pray, I want to mention that Bob Clark, the man that was the chaplain to the city commission for more than 20 years, he was right before me. He went to be with Jesus last week at 94 years old. And very few people accomplish as much in their life as Bob Clark did. He did. You find out a lot about a person when you go to the funeral and you hear everybody talking about all the wonderful things they did. Besides being the chaplain here, he had a heart for feeding people. He would feed the children, had a different site set up. He had an amazing network of companies and corporations that would call him when they had a semi-load of stuff to donate. More than once, I got a call from him saying, I have a load of yogurt and you got to come get it right now. And I would go get whatever I had refrigerator space for. If I had time, I'd pick up more and go distribute yogurt. But he had a heart for doing that. And even while he was in hospice, he was taking phone calls and directing trucks to different ministries to still be a blessing. We have so many excuses quite often why we cannot do something. Here he was laying there in hospice and still doing what God put on his heart to do. And so he was quite an inspiration, So let's all stand as we pray and remain standing for the pledge afterwards. Father God, we thank you for the many blessings we have. And Lord, we thank you for the inspiration we received from Bob Clark. And we ask you to bless his family at this time. Lord God, we thank you for our system of government. And Lord, we ask you to lead and guide our leaders from Washington, D.C. to Austin to right here in Brownsville. Lord God, you know the far-reaching effects of everything that's on our agenda today. And I ask you to give divine wisdom and direction to our mayor, each of our commissioners, and everyone that presents anything today. Lord, we thank you so much for all of this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. Now we have a short moment of silence where we can all add our prayers to what has already been spoken. Amen. Amen.
Pastor.
Thank you.
pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor
And
the
the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Our next item is our public comment period, and we received one public comment form from, I hope I'm pronouncing this name right, Madeline Eckhart. Madeline, are you present?
Eckhart, are you present? If so, feel free to unmute yourself. I don't see anybody by that name.
Okay, then we can move on to our next item, work sessions. Item 1, employee handbook work session, organizational development and human resources department.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. First of all, Happy New Year's to everyone. I wish you the best for this fiscal year, for this year. We want to present today the need that we have with employee handbook update forms. Next slide. We have an update. We know that we have new members of the commissioners, and we want to everyone have the same information that we present time ago. So we start with this. On the fall in 2019, we create a focus group with 11 employees that are representative for different departments. And then in 2020, we schedule weekly meetings with them. We review the manual chapters, and the team formulate recommendations to present to city management and directors. And we're working with the MAT team to have a communication and plan in place. So then on January 2021, we have a third-party review for best practices. We compare as other cities and compliance preparing an employee handbook and procedures guide. And then on April 2021, we come in and present it to commissioners. And the draft that we present, and we have a feedback for commissioners at that time that involve more communications present to employees. So also include more people in other departments to collaborate with this initiative. So we back and we created the ambassadors group and the change management strategy. So this is the recommendations that we receive, and so we back and do it. So the feedback that we receive for employees after we on August through November 2021, we began scheduled department visits. So the feedback that we received was related with sick leave or the period time and on the changes in the manual. So on August, we have also a town hall reminding the employees that the changes in the handbook employees and communication sessions that include a brief discussion of employee handbook highlights. So during these meetings, we gather questions from the employees and provide responses to our ambassadors. We have a very strong group of ambassadors that help us with that communication. So some of the main common employee questions were addressed on presentations. So we want to present to you what is the highlight changes that happened with employee handbook. That's why we are here in this commissioners workshop.
Okay, hi, so good evening, our honorable mayor and city commissioners. I'll be going over the rest of the presentation and foremost, what are we changing? Why are we here? So the employee handbook was last revised in 2006, and for best practices, it's for an organization to make sure that they update their employee information at least every 5 years. With the recommended updates, the new employee handbook includes like organizational culture, which is exemplified in the city's vision and mission. Also included are policy goals for compliance and best practice purposes, Most importantly, the updated employee handbook aligns policy to improve and assist management with functions and administrative enhancements or some of those decisions. It also speaks to compensation and benefits, and it includes recommended fiduciary responsibility for sustainability on some of these benefits, for instance, the sick leave. Of course, we also need to make sure that we were in compliance, and we included other policies as well that we'll be going over shortly. So as previously mentioned, the following components are included on the employee handbook to reinforce the vision, the mission, benchmarking and best practices, administrative enhancements, compensation and benefits, and other necessary employment policies. Next slide, please. So the employee handbook includes updated best practices such as the orientation period reduced from 6 months to 3 months. Another policy recommendation is to eliminate or regulate the fringe benefits for part-timers. However, they will keep any unused accrued time until they exhaust it. So for instance, on this first one is the orientation period. The current one says that the orientation period is at 6 months. The proposal is to go ahead and shorten the orientation period to 3 months. And for the part-timers, the proposal, the current is that they have sick leave and annual leave. And the proposed to that is to go ahead and limit that. They will no longer be accumulating any type of sick leave or vacation time. But those that have accumulated the leave will continue to use it until they exhaust it. So for the administrative enhancements, the current employee handbook, or the formerly known as the personnel policy manual, the best practices, as mentioned earlier, indicates the review of at least every 5 years to improve uniformity and accountability. For this one, we either removing or updated material since the last revision of 2006. Also, there have been perhaps some updates. The best example of this would be similarly to the Chapter 38 ordinance that needed to be updated because it was in need of reviewing. So also we wanted to make sure that this policy manual really was clear, concise language, because it is easier, and that we incorporated clear communication policies for it. We wanted to ensure compliance with federal and state labor laws and local ordinances. Obviously, there are labor laws that needed to be included in this manual that were not, and they are now we'll be going over those in a bit as well. And we also wanted to make sure to enhance administrative efficiency by condensing. An example of this would be really to condense the safety and the grievance policy. Next slide. So one of the other recommendations with benefits was to exchange the personal days with floating holidays. The personal days were restrictive in a sense that they could not be used concurrently with a holiday or a vacation day. And as floating holidays, now the proposal is to go ahead and have the ability to combine those two floating holidays with any type of leave. Next slide. So on this right here, another recommendation was limiting the payouts for sick leave. For sick leave to 720 hours or 90 days of unpaid leave, but taking into consideration feedback from commissioners from the last presentation was to grandfather the current top tiers. So the employees currently accumulating the sick leave days are paid according to the years of service. And I can go ahead and go over some of this information really quick. For instance, on this table that we have here, the current approach is 1 to 19 years of service. Those employees get paid 720 hours or 90 days. 20 to 24 years of service is 960 hours or 120 days. And 25 plus years of service, they get paid 1,200 hours or 150 days. The recommendation is to go ahead and grandfather the 20 plus years of service employees, to keep those employees that are between 1 to 19 years of service at 90 days. Next slide.
Just for clarification, it should be 720 hours.
Yes, that is correct.
90 days.
Yes, we apologize for that. Yes. It should be 720 hours. The next slide. This right here is a chart of the number of employees in the current tiers. As you can see, 578 employees, or 83% of those that are non-civil service, are at the 1 through 19 years. They would qualify for the 720-hour payout. 45 employees are at the 20 to 24 years of service, and 20 of those are qualified for the maximum payout. 26 employees are at the 25 plus years of service. 14 of those, or 2%, qualify for the 1,200-hour payout. Next slide. Additional policy inclusions related to leave benefits include the negative sick leave and the voluntary sick leave pool, which were created in response to COVID last year and available to all full-time employees who may otherwise not have enough sick leave. This right here is just a brief summary of how the policy appears in the handbook. For the negative leave, it is available to all full-time employees who work at least 40 hours, who have depleted or do not have any sick, annual, personal, or comp time, that have a qualifying FMLA event, and part-timers are not included because part-timers have a greater flexibility to make up any hours should they need to be out. The voluntary sick leave pool, that pool is actually in 4 different levels. It has the executive positions, which is city management, directors, assistant directors. It has middle management, which are the supervisors and the managers. And it has all frontline labor force, which are all the labor and the clerical position. Anyone who wants to be a recipient has to donate. They have to also have a certain amount of hours that they can donate, which is 8 hours. And they have to have a balance of at least 40 hours of sick leave. The same thing is available to all full-time 40-hour employees who have depleted all leave and have an FMLA qualifying event. Next slide. So the additional employment policies we spoke about, this updated handbook also includes the lactation, the violence prevention, the handgun, the teleworking or the telecommuting, and the social media policies. And some of these policies are actually because we need to be in compliance with federal and state laws, such as the handgun policy. So that is a difference from that because these are policies that are now included in this employee handbook. Next slide. So the next step, we are here today. This is a work session where no action needs to be taken at this time. Our goal is to present the employee handbook for commission approval at the following meeting. Then obviously we need to go ahead and disseminate the information, but before that, we want to implement a very comprehensive training to all our employees before we actually hand them the policy manual so they can go ahead and sign it or receive for that. Within the following day, within at least the 45 following days after approval. Any questions?
Yes, I have one. On the part-time employees and the benefits for sick leave regarding them and the other benefit, fringe benefit, is there any sort of fiscal note tied to that? Do we know exactly how much money that costs the city on a yearly basis?
On a yearly basis, we do not. We do have a planned report that tells us exactly how much money is currently the city has in financial commitments, but it's comprehensive. It includes everybody who has any type of sick leave, and that is at $3.4 million unfunded commitment, financial commitments.
That includes what's been accrued?
Yes.
Okay. Well, my question then would be, since recommendation is to eliminate those benefits, I just would like to know what the savings is going to be. I'm assuming that's the reason for doing that going forward. So I'd like to know what that savings is going to be.
Okay. We could definitely provide that for you. Also, one of the reasons is going back to the best practices for part-timers. It is not usual or customary now that part-timers have any type of benefit. This was an additional benefit for our part-timers. And the reason it was also recommended that it is part of a benefit that we slowly start to eliminate is because part-timers can't work over 1,000 hours in a year. And it gives them greater flexibility if they need to be out within a pay period. That's time that they can actually reschedule within that pay period. Gives them greater flexibility to make up the time that they were out.
I assume a part-timer, even though they're part-time, they still have some sort of schedule, right? Their time's still gonna be scheduled.
Yeah, they're scheduled by their department, that is correct.
And what we had shown there that last time we came before the commission for an update, the survey of different cities in the region. And I don't think any had benefits still for part-time. And that was in response to the law that changed, I think back in 2014 or 2015, I forget when it was, when organizations were having to provide benefits once they exceeded 1,000 hours of work. So it changed the game for how part-timers were used. In other words, cities substantially limited at that point the use of part-timers because they would incur benefits at 1,000 threshold. So they basically just scaled back the benefits and they still use it, but they shifted to seasonal employees. They shifted to temporary employment agencies and a lot of different tools because the overhead savings proposition significantly changed when that law was implemented by the federal government. So that's why many cities shed fringe benefits to part-time. Because we hadn't changed the manual or updated it since '06, still offered that for part-time. So we can quantify the savings, but generally to the point that Laura just made, it was when the federal government required, I think it was when Obamacare was implemented. That's when the 1,000-hour threshold was implemented. So basically organizations responded and shifted and just used part-timers less. But we can quantify that to see what the annual savings would be to the city.
Yeah, so we currently have 49 employees that are part-time, but out of those, only 28 have been here more than a year. So those would be the employees who hold sick leave and vacation time.
Okay.
And like I mentioned, it is time that would not be added to their balance, but whatever time they have accumulated, however much it is time that they can still use.
Thank you.
How many part-time positions does the city have right now that we're trying to fill?
That we're trying to fill, I don't have those numbers, but I have the total number of active part-timers, which is, like I mentioned,
40.
Yeah, but
49?
that's not what I'm looking at. What I'm looking at is, and what I'm curious about, do we have a lot of vacant positions we're having trouble filling? And if we are, then how is reducing the benefits and compensation we offer for these positions going to help us as a city find qualified people and fill these positions? And I know we're talking about what other cities do, but again, I need to see that this is right for Brownsville, not this is what Edinburgh or anybody else is doing. This is right for Brownsville and why. So I think it's important that we know things like that, what the cost is, like the mayor asked. Those are going to be important factors for me.
Yeah, we can provide.
We can provide that information, yes.
And also what I saw in other departments, they're creating different strategies with as a full-time position. They combine 2 part-times and then have a full-time.
Excellent.
Yeah.
The opportunity to have the entire benefit.
Yeah.
Part-timers don't have, for example, the insurance benefits. So when they combine the both, they can create a new opportunity for them. That's what I saw the last.
And I'd love to see
we can-
that is happening. That's a good thing.
Yeah, because there's been alternative strategies like library. We had, I think, 4 part-timers that we changed to full-time in 2020's budget or 2021. I don't recall. Right before your time, we merged 4 to create 2, and that solved their issue. So we've had to make those adaptations. I think what would be good to show is the level of seasonal and temporary employees that we've utilized also. We brought the contract recently before you all. And those are the tactics, merging, all those different things. I think collectively, we can probably show whether we've reduced the number of part-time positions. That could be a problem in terms of recruiting for part-time. I think if anything, if we have vacancies that are persistent, I would say that our benefits would make us more attractive, right? Because other cities don't offer benefits while we do for part-time, unless they know that caveat. Many times they might assume that we don't because others don't. So unless they would know that we have that benefit, they wouldn't otherwise want to work for us. But yeah, we can share it just to contextualize as much as we can. Kind of here's been the evolution of the part-time employee for us as an organization. So yeah.
And I know some of the feedback that I'd received from different departments, and I'm going along with the timeline you guys mentioned, that ambassadors were trained to go out and be able to speak to these changes that were coming in the employee handbook. Some of the feedback that I got was that these ambassadors were trained to say X, Y, and Z to explain these things, but then as questions came up, they weren't qualified to answer questions. And I want to be confident that questions that are out there from employees are being answered before we implement this. Because if there's something out there that we're not tackling yet, we need to be aware of it.
Yeah, we received a lot of comments about that, and that's what we created last session with the Q&A. And we have a very good participation, and we have a lot of questions that were resolved over there. There are some aligned with compensation, and we told them this is not about compensation. We're taking a different route of that, but we are here to clarify whatever question you have. So we try to do our best. We create an infographic, and after this is, we want to spend the time to train the employees. They understand what is the new things, where they can find the employee handbook, where is, everything that it's involved with employee handbook, that we want to spend time, not only before, also after, to clarify anything that they still have.
Yeah, we also didn't leave the ambassadors on their own, so to speak. We made sure that there was a representative from the city manager's office at every session. I know Elizabeth, for example, and Marina spent a lot of time out there. I was at some of those meetings myself, but just to, again, make sure that they heard it directly from the horse's mouth, so to speak, in terms of what were the issues. I know a lot of the concern was misinformation. I think also there was different perspectives of what was going to really happen and how it was going to impact them. Many thought that they qualify for more time off, and there was just a host of things that were some of those were mix-ups, but yeah, the ambassadors were there to be more of a kind of a democratic and participatory voice in the process. I think once they learned what was really being proposed, there was a lot more relief from the employees. We even had town hall meetings where we used them also for two-way communication. But I mean, to the degree that we also stepped back to not put undue influence and, make the environment as comfortable as we could for middle managers. And that's also why we had the ambassador strategy, because typically the messenger, who's the messenger, right? And I mean, to the degree that we could cover for every individual's considerations about how they wanted to relay information. We even had some anonymous people send messages on town hall meetings. So however they chose to communicate, we were prepared to respond factually and timely and really consider the feedback. But yeah, and that's why we extended it, 6-9 months more? We added 6 to 9 months just
And
for communication, so.
4 or 5 months creating this new group, training them, try to resolve the questions because they have questions too, right? So we learn with them as well. Like, we are trying to use all the resources to improve the communication in the organization. So we are helping them and they are helping us to communicate those changes.
I commend you guys on extending the process, and while you guys are gathering the additional data and where this comes back just for a vote, I'll be reaching out to some of the departments also just to make sure that they're comfortable that their questions have been answered. And if any questions are still lingering, I'll bring them back to you guys.
Sure. Thank you. Any other questions from the commission? Thanks.
Thank you.
Work session item 2, airport monument signs, Department of Aviation.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Brian Walker with the City Manager's Office. Tonight, I'm here in the capacity of Airport Administrator, and we're going to go over the monument sign proposal that was put together by the airport and approved by the Airport Board. So the objective is to enhance wayfinding, sort of trying to match the look and feel of the terminal itself. This is pretty much the design. So it's all conceptual. It's not engineered or anything like that. But we have put, this was approved to go ahead and do the design. And this is pretty much the recommended design by the Airport Board and the Airport Administration. There's a daytime view and a nighttime view. It is basically a channel letter type design with a solid base and backlit letters for nighttime visibility. What we would like is to review the locations. We have two locations. We're all familiar with Boca Chica at Billy Mitchell intersection. There's quite a large landscaped island there, so we're proposing to put a sign there. And there's a second location at the split of the new traffic loop for the airport. We'd be proposing to put a sign there also. There's the intersection island, and there's some mock-ups of the monument. And you can see there's a slight difference in this picture of the monument and the previous one. This one actually has the entire airport name spelled out. The previous one did not. So there's slight variations in the design itself. This is at the split right in front of the terminal. It's a daytime view and then a sort of a dusk nighttime view. And that's all there is to it. It's really just showing you what we've been working on, what it looks like, and what we're recommending. So we would love to get your feedback if you have any on the locations or on the styling of the sign or anything else.
Is it indestructible? Because I live in that area and so I could see a car like.
Right. Well, that's, yes, so that's the point of the raised base. So if we go back to the original sort of, you can sort of see there, it's got the raised brick base. And we have seen cars hit the Billy Mitchell intersection there, that landscaped island. And they just go in and repair the brickwork and it's fine. So it's.
Tagging, is it easy to clean so that if someone
If it gets vandalized.
thinks I know my.
We do have security at the airport 24 hours. So that's a pretty big deterrent for any type of vandalization. We did take that into consideration, but we're kind of limited. There's not a whole lot we can do to, guarantee it wouldn't happen, but we have, it is, what's the word? I don't know. We can replace components of it. So.
Is the surface something that lends itself to cleaning if there's graffiti?
Well, the engineering's not done. So this is just a conceptual sort of design. So when we engineered it, we would request a durable surface, yes.
It looks pretty. And I have to commend you because I remember when it was just all like in thinking, I never would have imagined that it would have looked as nice as it does. So.
Thanks. So that's all I have. Any other questions?
Do we expect that both of them will be identical, or do we expect one might be different than the other?
We're expecting they'd be identical.
And do we expect that they will or will not say Brownsville South Pod Route and Internet?
They would absolutely, they must.
Okay. So it'll be more likely something closer to this design.
Yes,
So that one has the airplane at,
it does, yes.
is it gonna have the airplane or not?
Well, it's expected that it would, unless there's some engineering, technical problem with doing that, it would.
I think that looks fantastic, especially for the Billy Mitchell where it veers off. I think that's perfect because it's like a directional.
What's the shade of blue that you're going to use? It looks like you're using different shades.
That's coming across in the images.
Yeah.
There's a convention for the branding, and so it's
Based on that.
it's based on that. If you print it out, which I do have the prints, I think that's about as close as it gets in the logo. So anything that you see branded by with the airport logo, it's going to be that color.
Okay.
It looks more purplish or something. That wouldn't be. Anything else? Okay, well, thank you very much.
We don't have any wayfinding.
No, there's no wayfinding like this at all. Oh, in the old terminal? No, there was just one at the split. So in the previous terminal, before we, started construction, there was it almost looked like an iPhone tile that just had the airport logo on it and the name. 10 years ago, they had a different thing, but that was more like plywood on 4x4 posts.
Okay. For the textile version.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Our next item is consent agenda items 1 through 15.
Looking for a motion?
I'd like to see There's a couple that I want, or there's one I want pulled out. Just number 2, because I have a question on it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, Commissioner, is that a motion?
Then there was, I can second though on the ones where I had a conflict of interest or no?
No.
Pull it out,
You just
Hold it, yeah.
then vote.
better pull out.
Mhm, yes.
Commissioner Los Santos making a motion just for to pull that one
I
out?
will. Are there others that Commissioner Galante has? Or we can do one motion to pull.
I do, sorry, let me look it up really quickly. It was. I think it's in the consent agenda.
Right.
So I guess do we pull out just within the consent agenda, the minute from the consent agenda? Or do we pull out the consent agenda?
The item,
About the minutes?
Yeah, yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, just pull out the minutes and vote on that separately.
Okay, well, yes, it's the minutes of December 7th.
7th?
Then I'll move to pull out the minutes of December 7th and consent agenda item number 2 and approve all others as there's.
second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Item 1, the only pending item is the minutes of December 7th. Do I have a motion on that?
I'm just gonna abstain, because I have a conflict of interest.
Got it. We just need to approve the minutes.
What was the question on them?
No, she had a conflict with the interest.
There's also.
Oh, okay. I'll move to approve.
Second. We have a motion to approve the minutes of December 7th in a second. Is there any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And Commissioner Galante is abstaining. Okay, Commissioner Los Santos, item 2.
On item 2, 2 questions I had. The first one was, I noticed that this was a bid that closed back in May of 2021, and it was for a quote that was only good for 90 days. Why is it just coming to us now versus August, September timeframe?
To reject? Yeah,
Reject.
it's being rejected. Do we have somebody here on this? It's Finance Services Department? Right. Anybody else?
Finance or Chief Sheldon.
Yes, this is Chief Sheldon. So the process on this one was that we were going to switch to a new electronic patient care reporting system. There was quite a bit of a time frame in between a transition where one of the companies bought out another company. And one of the transitions occurred to where a current reporting system that we use on the fire department side bought an electronic care reporting system. There was a lot of details that had to be worked out on that. So in order to try to consolidate our current systems, we were kind of waiting to see what would happen and get further kind of detail from those companies that were merging. And we will be bringing a new item to you, hopefully within the next meeting or two, to approve for that company who merged with the current systems we have, who is also has compatibility with the new CAD system that PD is also switching to. So there was a lot of changes and buyouts over the last year. So that's what kind of delayed that project.
And then I think you covered my second question, Chief. My second question was going to be, what was the plan? Because I know like the next item, number 3, it talked about why they were rejecting and what the plan was moving forward, but I didn't see that with this one. And that's why I wanted to make sure we got that on the record. Thank you.
Okay, with that being said, do we have any motions to?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Can I bring up a point? Sorry, I should have pulled out a section or consent agenda number 5 because I also have a conflict with that one. It's a second reading, an annexation of a property that,
Thought there was another.
yeah.
Just make sure that that's the only one, Commissioner.
Correct. Yes, because it's a second reading. And then consent.
Okay,
We
then,
need to move to consider, Council.
So let me get this right. You have a conflict of interest with 5?
Yes.
Okay. Then, yes, then the motion would be a motion to reconsider number 5, which is allowed under 226. And then we would revisit the item again.
Motion to reconsider number 5.
Second.
we have a motion and a second to reconsider item number 5. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. All right, so then
Move to approve.
Second.
we have a motion and a second to approve item number 5
I'll abstain.
with an abstention from Commissioner Galante. Is there any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passed. Thank you.
Items for individual consideration. Item 1, consideration and action to approve Resolution 2022-001, authorizing the city manager and/or his designees to execute the Housing and Urban Development Agreement and any required documents such as HUD-1044 related to the fiscal year 2021 Choice Neighborhood Planning Grant for the Southmost International Neighborhood, City Manager's Office.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Happy New Year to each and every one of you. Continued blessings. Marina Solesi with the City Manager's Office, and tonight we have CEO with the Housing Authority, Ms. Carla Mancha. And tonight what we have, we're really excited with the news that the City of Brownsville and the Housing Authority were awarded a HUD neighborhood grant, and this is for the fiscal year 2021. The grant's in the amount of $450,000, and it's dedicated for the revitalization planning for the Victoria Gardens housing development and the surrounding area, which is International and Southmost. So we're really excited about that. Back in 2015, 2016, the Housing Authority and the City of Brownsville were awarded another Choice Neighborhood grant. This was for the Buena Vida area, and a plan was completed, and it was very successful, and there has been a lot of positive impact from that. So this resolution before you is to approve, to allow the city manager and/or his designee to approve documents related to HUD, which includes the HUD agreement and other forms. The planning process is a 2-year process. So in February, we're hoping to have a virtual announcement event. So we'll be providing more information to all of you, and hopefully an in-person event in the summer. We'll be monitoring how COVID goes and so forth. And so we appreciate your support. I know Commissioner Galansky has been with us throughout the whole process. And so I know Ms. Carla Mancha has a couple of words for us.
Yes, so Mayor and City Commission, Happy New Year and the best to you for 2022. And like Marina said, we're very excited about this award. It is a 2-year journey where we will be partnering together and working with the community, working with the families that are not only within the footprint of the identified area there of Southmost International. And of course, Victoria Gardens is the anchor for this project. It would be an intentional focused effort to continuously educate, inform, empower our families and our community about what choice planning is about. And like Marina said, we had a great experience with Buena Vida. I look forward to working with all of you on this project. And one thing I do want to mention is that there have been 5 Choice Neighborhood Planning Grants awarded by HUD in the past 10 years to a total of 4 communities. One of those communities being Brownsville, and Brownsville being the only community that has been awarded twice. And we are the only community on the US-Mexican border from California to Texas that is part of the Choice Neighborhood Network. So congratulations, Mayor, City Commission, especially to Commissioner Galansky, who has been very engaged throughout the entire process. And we look forward to working with her. And congratulations to City Manager Bernal, Marina, the entire team on behalf of Chairman Garduño, Vice Chairman Miller, and Commissioners Herrera and Seifert and Villarreal. Thank you so much on behalf of the HACB.
Thank you very much, Carla.
Thank you,
Great job.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Item 2, consideration and action to award contract FCS-77-1021 for construction of the Brownsville South Padre Island International Airport downstairs concessions space in the amount of $499,000. Department of Aviation.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Happy New Year, 2022. Francisco Partida, Interim Assistant Director for the Brownsville South Padre Island International Airport. I'm bringing to you the downstairs food and beverage concession construction contract to be awarded to Sames Inc. or Sames Engineers from, I believe, McAllen, Texas. Yes. Following the design bid process and advertising this for at least 30 days, we received 4 bids for this space outlined here in the presentation. It's a full-service restaurant with a bar, and it was designed to match the new terminal design and provide the passengers with the level of service that they deserve, and our tenants and employees. Of the 4 bids that we received, the evaluation committee had to throw one out due to being incomplete, so it was marked unresponsive. And the other 3 were fully evaluated, references were checked, negotiations were initiated by the procurement department, which we thank for their support during this process. And we are recommending the award of this contract for $499,000 to Sames Inc. from McAllen, Texas.
Francisco, just one question. This is for the downstairs. There's an upstairs space.
Yes, sir.
When is that going to be done?
So at this point, traffic levels are still below 2019 levels. It was our best year for Brownsville with 129,000 employments, still not enough to support 2 concession spaces. But the management of the concession allows for this concessionaire to offer a pop-up cafe on the upstairs area, in the gate area. And they are committed to that. They've been trying to kickstart that since a month ago, even in the conditions that we are operating right now. It's just been challenging with equipment. The restaurant supplies have a 6 months lead-in time for any equipment, and labor has been also an issue. But I've been told that no later than the end of the month, we will have a pop-up cafe like we have downstairs, serving the passengers in the gate area.
What's the square footage on the upstairs as opposed to downstairs?
It's about the same space, about 1,400 square feet.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
And is there, and forgive me for this, but I don't know, but is there some sort of studies that indicate that there's more traffic or more, I guess, more customers for a downstairs as opposed to an upstairs?
The way that the Transportation Security Administration operates currently and historically is that they only open the checkpoint about 45 minutes before each flight. So we have a lot of lingering, or we have a lot of waiting time on the public side. So it makes more sense to start with the first floor concession space. When passenger levels recover to 100%, we can talk to TSA. They also are experiencing quite the shortage of labor. That also doesn't allow them to keep the checkpoint open. At the same time, when we are successful to attract more airlines and keep the checkpoint open longer, that balance will definitely shift. But we will be working hand in hand with the hospitality group, the concessionaire, to make the adjustments necessary to maintain those service levels.
And do you have any sort of plan or thoughts on when the upstairs, I mean, I know that there's factors involved, but is there some kind of thought as far as when you may want to move forward on that, on the build out of the upstairs? Is it going to take certain things, or what's the plan for that?
It will have to be data driven, and we will have to look at the trends both locally and nationally to make that decision. Obviously, it's a huge investment to finish out the spaces. And we'll continue to evaluate all the options, and we will be ready to move forward and benefit of the citizens and visitors of Brownsville. Yes, ma'am.
Is this, as I understand it, the contract to build it, it's not to act, is it also including the people or the company that's going to run the concession? It's just to build it?
It's just to build it. That is correct.
And so my question about the building of it is, especially these days during COVID, was there consideration to having it an open space as opposed to a glass enclosure, which is a closed space, less air ventilation?
So the new terminal design, we have really great ventilation, really great filtration system to begin with. And during COVID, which we were still under construction, we added the ionic filtration system to the HVAC, which captures 99.7% of the airborne pathogens.
And that would be true inside that?
It's the same system that filtrates the whole terminal.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions?
So if you don't have a tenant yet, how do you know that it'll be finished out to the liking of the tenant?
We do have a tenant. It's that Ramblas Hospitality Group that is manning that pop-up cafe, and they're eager to move into a permanent location.
Okay, and so the $499 is a price for the city, right? What is the Las Ramblas contributing to the cost?
The management of there's a contract for managing the concession space, and there's a minimum revenue guarantee built into the contract. So they will be carrying.
Or that's part of their rent, the minimum.
There's a rent for the space, and then there's profit sharing.
I'm sorry, is that contract going to come before the commission as well?
It was authorized by the city commission for the city manager to negotiate and approve earlier in 2021.
Normally, doesn't the tenant also participate in the cost of finishing out?
In
The space.
normal situations, definitely. We tried that route. We had an RFP out for both construction and management of the concessions. It unfortunately did not gain any traction. We tried to repackage it and re-advertise it. Obviously, the middle of the pandemic did not help. We checked with different groups. We sent out feelers and everything, and it was moved more towards an economic development initiative to award this contract to Ramblas Hospitality Group to manage and provide the services, because no concessionaire, no national level concessionaire was interested in investing $500,000 in managing the restaurant.
So does the 500,000, include the equipment like estufas or?
Yes, that is correct.
Never heard of something like this. I mean, I probably know about 40 restaurant owners, and nobody told me that they were offered that deal that you all are talking about right now. That's an amazing deal. I mean, so they're just gonna walk in and.
There's a cost associated. They will have all the risk on the liquor license. They will have all the risk on labor, liability insurance, and there's a higher profit sharing than a regular concessionaire. The national average is between 7 and 9%. I don't recall what the percentage was that was negotiated with this hospitality group. It's a higher percentage of profit sharing.
Are they paying rent though, or they're just gonna pay off the top of their profits?
It's a combination of, there's a minimum revenue guarantee, and on top of that, it's I would like to.
Well, let me just interject a little bit to give a little bit of background on the RFP process. We went through that for probably 6 months. We extended multiple times. We did answer some questions. There was a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of restaurants that were interested. So they asked a lot of questions. We ultimately got 0 responses, despite a lot of interaction. At one point we started getting people that wanted to open a restaurant there. And so they started approaching the purchasing department, and all the proposals that were given to the purchasing department were untenable for one reason or another. The capability, the build out was in question, everything else was. So then ultimately the current awarded concessionaire, they came with more of a full proposal, opting to increase their sharing with the airport. I think it is about 25%, which is pretty high.
That is.
So we negotiated with them, and that's what the city manager was authorized to do. Procurement, ensure that we were following all the correct processes, and then it was ultimately awarded to the current concessionaire.
Yeah, it was a very unique circumstance. And again, typically we always RFP and open it up. And we did do that, as Brian explained. The only reason why the commission at the time that I recall delegated was because we wanted to be positioned to act. And not that I was involved, but certainly airport took the lead. And because we got stuck, so to speak, because of COVID and other factors, we still wanted to have the feelers out there. So they still followed pretty much the same criteria, but they went with some of those initial interested parties. We landed with somebody local. Obviously, local consideration was important. We many times get that question from the commission, but it was done through a procurement process. It was just when the process ended up hitting a dead end, we pivoted and we just asked the commission for never carte blanche. It's just delegation of authority to see if we could see traction at some point. And when things opened up a bit more, post-COVID, that one, the concession stand could get built, and two, that we'd have a tenant that was viable. And I think, as Brian just explained, we ended up with a better deal than we would likely have gotten through an RFP process. But regardless, Brian, what's the term? Because we're going to bring it back to the commission. That was just a very rare exception to get going, but we're going to subsequently bring that back and make sure that the commission obviously is involved in renewals, extensions, and any new RFPs. But I would say COVID is what really made that process what it was. But what's the term?
What is it, a 3-year?
It's a 3-year contract.
Not 3 years, so
It's not a,
it's not endless or anything like that. And if you remember, when we started negotiating all this, just to make sure that we had this food service for the community in the airport, we were in the middle of COVID. So you had places like Hudson News and Post and SSP, these generally airport concessions, they were contracting. They were closing locations throughout the country. So for us to attract or build this out, we pretty much had to take that burden. So you said you've never seen this before. I haven't either.
Correct.
But this is the only way we could actually manage it.
Well, I just think you all should be fair with Ramblas, whatever it's called. And let them know that this is a 3-year deal.
They're aware.
They know.
Because you don't want to have them take this, well, I don't even know how hard this is for them at the moment. But jump into this, and then 3 years from now, when COVID is gone, hopefully, you're going to say, hey, now you got to pay a rent like everybody else does.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like there's a rent.
No, there's a rent. There's a minimum annual guarantee that's built into the lease. And then on top of that, then we have the profit sharing. So there's 2 components to the lease revenue.
we'll share that. We can send it to you all.
Yeah.
Send it on check-in as a follow-up. And then at the end of the 3-year term, though, we're not going to renew administratively. It's going to go back to an RFP process at that time.
I'll have to read that.
And I'm sorry, but I'm sure if we delegated some sort of authority, but did we delegate the negotiation or the execution of the contract or both?
I don't know. I think we have to go back and look at the recording. What I remember is basically we wanted to delegate the ability to negotiate with a potential tenant for that space under the parameters of what was in the RFP.
Yeah, because I mean, typically I know that having somebody negotiate something can be delegated, but the contract would typically come back for kind of ratification or approval before the commission. So I don't remember that occurring. But then does it start once the build out's done and they move in? Is that when
They've started with the current service they're providing, so they're already operating. So they're already cutting us checks for the sales they have.
Yeah, because the contract didn't start with a build out. They started before.
Before, yes.
So in other words, that's the only reason why we have services today.
September.
It was done then.
I want to say August or September.
I still have a question, but not about the contract. My question is about the menu. As you know, traveling through airports these days, it's not just all nachos and Cheetos. Travelers are wanting healthier choices, more variety and so forth. So I'm hoping that what they're going to offer is varied and healthy choices and options and not just junk food.
Correct. No,
Is that true?
It is. Part of the RFP included healthy grab and go options, as well as full service and your regular burgers and paninis and maybe some breakfast items. The current concessionaire is local, has a very local focus and has been able to bring in different vendors. He works with different companies that are already established in Brownsville and offer local products, local produce And they want to put the council name, not just for the city, but for the local businesses out there with the public.
Good. I would hate to see it deteriorate to something that was just,
Commercial.
Well, the menu is part of the lease, so we have input on that. If it's not working, if it's not successful or satisfactory, if it doesn't represent the city or the airport, to the expectations of leadership and management, then we would absolutely review that with the tenant.
all right, thank you.
All right, the action item here is regarding the construction of the downstairs concession space. Do I have any motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
Item 3, consideration and action to authorize task order number 6 for Garver LLC to provide construction management services for concessions, space construction, and installation of digital signage in the amount of $196,000, Department of Aviation.
Honorable Mayor and Commissioners, Francisco Partida, Interim Assistant Director for the airport. This is for the construction management services for the contract that you just gracefully awarded. We're also tying in the digital signage project that was awarded by the City Commission in September 21st, 2021. We haven't kickstarted that project because of supply chain issues. They still have 50% of our inventory on back order. So we saw the opportunity to group this two and have Garver LLC, which is the authorized consultant for A&E services for the airport, take on this project. The logic behind it is they are an extension of the airport staff. They are the experts for the terminal. They've been involved since groundbreaking to completion. They know what every conduit is, the quality control needed to execute both projects. And they can be on top of both vendors and general contractors and assure that the monies that are being spent on these projects are very well spent and the final product is Brownsville worthy. The total cost is $196,000. This is just a list of the proposed work, the scope of work that they will be performing for us, on-site representation, review of contractors' work, performance with the plans and specifications, et cetera, et cetera. And it's for both projects. The downstairs concessions has a price tag of $153,638 to manage that. And for the digital signage is $43,362, estimating a construction time for both of 6 months.
The concession area, I mean, it's almost 150,000. The cost of construction is 5, so that's, I guess, right around the 30%. Is that normal? That seems really high.
It's like 40%.
Okay.
Yes, we did discuss that with the engineers, and due to the current conditions, the industry has gone and we negotiated, we definitely reviewed every hour that they're going to put into reviewing plans and quality control, site visits, adherence to specifications, and unfortunately the price tag did came out higher than we have expected.
Is this something went out to bid with other companies, or was it just Garver you negotiated with?
Yeah, Garver is the A&E on-call consultant. So it's authorized by the FAA and authorized by the commission to assign these projects. Like I said, it's a task order number 6, and it's natural that they would take on this type of project due to their knowledge of the terminal building and their expertise on every system that has been installed in that terminal.
Okay, expertise aside, though, the cost is extremely high compared to the amount of construction. So is that something you're saying that the industry is high, but is it that high?
Well, this is, okay, so if I'll interject here too. We did discuss this with the inspectors and the on-site representatives that would be there. It's not just their expertise, but it's also the fact that it's the size, the scale of the project itself. So when we built the terminal, this is the company that did the on-site owners, representatives on site, the inspections, all the Davis-Bacon stuff that was done for the current terminal. It's the same company, but because of the scale of this, it's so much smaller, you still need that same person. So where they had two people on board for the terminal, pretty much 24 hours a day, for this project for 6 months, they're dedicating essentially the same number of people. And that's really what it comes down to. So
I would think because they had institutional knowledge of the project, it would be cheaper.
well, yeah, I would hope that, but they feel like they need to charge for that as well. We're inclined to accept it and not do an RFP because of the institutional knowledge, because there could be something that actually they would be pretty much obligated to make sure the project worked out because they were there for the construction of it. They can't act surprised by anything because they were responsible for how it was ultimately delivered. So it is expensive. It's more expensive than we would have liked, but for all those reasons, we're still inclined to recommend it. But if you would like, we can certainly go do an RFP.
Here's my concern.
That's not my individual call, it's the commission.
Here's my concern on this is building out a restaurant. And we are the city of Brownsville. We inspect restaurants every day of the year. And we tell people whether or not they're up to code and up to spec and up to our expectations. This is a city-owned building. We've been in it for a year. Why do we not know this building well enough yet internally to be able to do this ourselves? Because I've read through it, we're hiring a middleman. Part of it is they'll answer questions, help you guys answer questions to the contractor and help the contractor convey information to you guys. We're paying a middleman. And if this was a brand new building, if this was something we weren't familiar with yet, that might be a little bit different. But when are we going to be experts in the buildings that we own so that we're not spending this type of money on managing just a project, a build out, when we can inspect every other restaurant in the city of Brownsville 365 days a year?
Well, I would say that the difference is when someone else builds it, we can go in and we can gauge whether or not, it's acceptable. In this case, we actually have to modify the building to be a restaurant. So right now we don't have roof stations, we don't have the exhaust ducts or any of that stuff. We don't have any of it installed. We don't have there's room and everything for the grease traps and all that, but we haven't installed it. And I don't think that the city generally constructs restaurants. So the construction of it would be my concern.
Well, no, we just awarded the contract for construction. That's separate.
Right.
I'm talking about watching the construction and making sure, yes, this is to code. Yes, this is to plans. Why do we need a middleman to do that when we don't do that with any other restaurant in town?
I might interject as to maybe a bit of a legal explanation is by having a management services, you remove some of the liability that might be exposed to the city were there to be a bad decision made in the management and construction of the project. But that's just a part of it.
And I know we lean on that frequently, which is not something I'm a fan of. I understand it, but I'm not a fan of it because we spend a lot of money on consultants. I think we could pay employees better, make sure we've got highly trained and qualified people so that we're not any more or less likely to make a mistake than somebody we contract out. And so we're paying our people better.
And if I may interject, I believe that the city engineering and public works is a very dedicated department and they have their areas of expertise. I'm not sure that it would be building a restaurant or
They're not going to build it. This is not building.
No, I'm sorry, inspecting. You're correct. I stand corrected. Inspecting and making sure that the quality control is there for this type of facility.
The FAA regulations in pre-security and also post-security, I forget.
Yeah, it would be post-security. Not applicable for this. Never.
This particular space was carved out for concessions.
Correct. And at the beginning of the project, it had more features, but as the project evolved, we just decided to go with a white box. And that's why, like Mr. Walker has mentioned, there are dedicated locations for certain elements, but they were not finished out or they were not put in. And that money was directed to other areas that needed more attention.
Yeah, and those are all good points and concerns. I don't have anything else to add. I think Brian gave some very, very good points. And Francisco, I would just say that there's, the balancing act of price or cost versus value. And I think what staff's basically evaluate for is there's certain value points that Garf make because of their knowledge of the facility, the uniqueness of the construction and things of that sort. The cost, is what it is. I mean, we pay 3% for the ARPA projects. Those are different. Some of those are just street projects, water line projects. I think the most sophisticated one there is the broadband project. But even so, it's not too crazy sophisticated. I think basically the approval here is the price is one thing. Staff has deemed there's a certain value still. I would also add that we're down, even though Francisco is providing interim services, we're down an assistant director. So a lot of the savings from Sean's position are going to be used for some of the costs here. So we're down the work that Francisco typically does plus the AD. So the question is the set of eyes you're going to have on the project continually. I think that's another sticking point that we don't have an AD that's providing that additional, let's say, I know Sean was directly hands-on with a lot of the construction components. He's not here. He moved on. So we're hiring for that position. So I would say that's another one of those qualitative reasons that we would want to at least know that there's going to be enough attention devoted to every little detail of the construction as it's being done. But nonetheless, if we need to put it out to see if we could get better project management, certainly that's something that we can entertain.
Yeah, and on that note, Mr. Bernal, I guess my concern would be, and I've seen that posting. I know what we're offering as far as starting salary goes. This is 6 months and it's double what we're offering for that position. And I think that's where the mayor's coming from, is we're talking about a big chunk of money for what we're getting for here.
Any other questions or commission? Okay, I'm looking for a motion.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, okay, so motion fails. All right. Item?
Just that I'm clear, then we're not going to finish out the space, but we did agree to pay $499 for the fixtures and the remodeling of the.
No, the $499 is to fix out the space. We're not going to pay a guy to watch it being fixed.
Yes, so now staff will either have to RFP, bring another item before the city commission, or just handle it themselves internally.
Okay.
Or the construction team.
Okay.
I do have that construction, the contract, because we need.
That's the way I thought.
Yeah, okay.
Next item, Lori, number 4.
Item 4, consideration and action for the city of Brownsville to enter into a contract agreement with the Port Occupational and Medical Clinic LLC for medical services in response to COVID-19, number MSC-23-012, Public Health Department.
Honorable Mayor, members of the commission, good evening. So you've seen where we are today with COVID, probably the 4th wave that we had, and the county recently announced, verified that Omicron is in Cameron County. You've seen the long lines of people wanting to be tested. Last week, after a series of meetings with the hospitals, we started to learn that they were being severely impacted by the number of people showing up in the ERs asking to be tested, not necessarily for medical care itself, but just starting to overrun the ED specifically. The agenda tonight, item 3 and 4, the next two are contract agreements. We've had these before a year ago, these term contracts, we let them expire because we really thought we were past these at one point in time. We're bringing them back tonight for your approval because of the following reasons. We feel that in order to protect the healthcare system, we need to have testing available for low-income individuals who cannot afford it. The hospitals meetings today, the population most at risk is the unvaccinated and predominantly also children. If you look at numbers and beds, ICUs for children and pediatrician specialists, the nurses who care children is probably the rarest of healthcare providers. Really, the intent here to offer this is to allow our citizens a different venue to go and get tested and have that peace of mind. I would say what you are approving tonight is a month to month, up to 1 year, worst case scenario. But we've continued to have conversations with the state and the county to be out to offer these services here in the near future. They were denied before I brought this in. We did try to get state funding, state assets to come in place and county assets to come into place. They were denied. However, we've continued to have that conversation. So tonight I'm asking to approve these, but we will not give up on the fight to have federal funding assets in place as soon as possible. So with your authorization, this will be the next two items to allow us to bridge a gap, those needs where our citizens right now just feel like they need to test for COVID-19.
And Art, I know just over the course of the last few days, we had a short-term contract with these providers, and the demand was
overwhelming. Yes, sir. So before tonight, the plan is just lined up in such a that we are entering this over the holiday season. Everything was closed. The numbers were going up. We felt at the end of the day, we have a responsibility, and that's to provide to our community. We did a 7-day contract, short-term contract through the city manager's office authorization as a gap measured in, and we had an overwhelming results. In fact, our providers could not keep up. They all ran out of test kits, even within those 7 days. So it just highlights the impetus that is out there to be tested.
And I know that there was a question as to whether the testing kits would be rapids or regular PCR. My understanding is it's going to be PCR, which is going to take about a day or two. At this point in time, maybe longer.
Yeah, that's a great question. So for especially new members of the commission, one of the rivalries in the public comment has been short-term, convenient 15-minute results versus the gold standard PCR that takes 18 to 24 hours. As a health department, we're always going to advocate for the best PCR gold standard, which is an 18 to 24-hour test. One of the reasons is, and I had a conversation with Dr. Wells today, is it's after the fact when you test positive with a PCR, a regular test, when workman comps issues comes up or insurance issues comes up, they're going to ask you what type of test did you take. If you say you took a PCR regular, the 18, 24-hour test, and you can confirm that, there's going to be very little of them being able to deny the claim or deny the workman's comp because it was a reliable test. Any other test that you get that is 15 minutes or rushed, there's always going to be that question of whether it was even a reliable positive or negative. That's why we've held fast to the COVID-19, to the PCR test. It's the gold standard. There's been a lot of pressure, and I'll be very honest with you, more white hairs in a rush to try and get us to do the 15 minutes. And we almost have those conversations, but at the end of the day, we got to do it for the right reasons. And I know that an 18, 24-hour test is not what everyone wants to hear, but it's probably the best thing to do when you're trying to serve the low-income folks and not cheat them out of a reliable test.
Oh, but we want the most accurate test, and we want to ensure that. Also, I think a secondary benefit to that, to the time frame, is keeping people off the street for that period of time, making sure that they stay home, making sure they stay away from other people. And in the end, this is going to be at no cost to our citizen, our constituents. So I see the benefit in doing the gold standard, like you say, even though the rapid may provide more of a quick answer potentially. I know that the efficacy is much better with the other tests. So I just want to ensure that the providers will be doing those tests. And again, just make certain that this is something that's not going to be coming out of pocket for our residents.
That's true. After this, we are going to let the providers offer the fast rapid, but they're going to have to pay upfront, but it's not something the city's going to advocate. If there's a customer out there who's adamant they want a 15, they can do it out of their own pocket, non-city funds being used, because we know there's always going to be that individual is going to come through our line.
Well, I think there's going to be more than that. And
right.
To that end, I want to make sure that there's proper literature that the citizen is being advised, advised, like you say, fully, and not kind of driven towards a rapid that's going to come at a cost to them. I'd like to make sure that that's very well stated and that people know about that and that they are not led towards a rapid if that's not what they want and if that's going to be at a cost to them.
And if the provider should have a process, or if I do a rapid and I'm positive, but I don't believe it because I don't feel bad, am I gonna clog up the line and say, no, now I want the PCR? Or, you know what I'm saying? So
That's a good
provider should have a process for that so that there's a workflow.
For ours, sorry, but for ours, it would be much cleaner. We just announced that we would just be doing the PCR test. And I think that's the best simple communication is that that's all we're going to be doing. But I'll admit, we've been under a lot of pressure from both the providers and the public to do the rapid. But the right thing to do is to offer the gold standard test and that conversation.
When we're using funds like we are for this, I think we need to ensure that it's the most accurate and that we are ensuring public safety to the most. One last thing, Art, this is something that we believe will be reimbursed, correct?
So prior to this, I checked with the Office of Emergency Management. There should be an attachment with the agenda. If not, I'll be happy to amend it where we got an approval from OEM before we submitted these two items.
Great. All right. Makes it easy. Okay, at least for me.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission?
In the hospital call this morning, there was mention, and I didn't know because you brought it up. So there's different charges, or it's more expensive if you have a test in the hospital, or?
Absolutely. So the docs in a box, as I call them, the mini ERs that you see around the town, and the ER visits are very costly. I can't give you exact numbers, but you can easily run a $500 to $1,000 visit. And
There be a cap on how many times the same person can visit, or
to the ER,
to the city-sponsored testing clinics?
so to answer two questions, we currently don't have a limitation. We know that question did come up a year ago as to how often someone could test. We did recommend that there's certain days of incubation, and we'll share that. When COVID-19 day 0 to 4 exposure, you want to test on day 5. And you shouldn't test any sooner than that period of time. So we'll be sharing that type of literature again, as we did with the boots on the ground previously. We'll be happy to share that again to educate people as to how often they should wait before they test again.
And then who would be responsible for procuring enough tests? Because we hear about sites running out of tests. So would it be the contractors or the city's responsibility, or how do we?
So it would be the contractors, but I will say that I feel that right now there's a rush for the 15-minute antigen test, and those are the ones that are in shorthand. The kind of test that we're pushing is a regular PCR, and I'm not aware that there's a shortage of those right now.
Major shortage with the rapids. I know that I heard from the Fort Clinic today that typically they would get 200 and now they're limited to 50. So it's becoming difficult. There's, I guess, supply chain issues now in rapid COVID.
That's right.
But there's all sorts of different outfits now that are doing these pop-up rapid clinics. So if the consumer wants to take that approach and pay out of pocket, that's on them. But I think for us, from the public standpoint, being stewards of public money, I think this is the best approach.
And Mayor, you didn't ask me a question, but I should offer this to the commission. We did go up to a level 3 threat matrix, primarily because we feel the pediatric population is the one we need to be looking at closely. The other thing we've done is since 2020, we occasionally go out to different clinics that are testing to make sure. We've had episodes where had COVID testing offered out of a hairdresser's shop. We've had COVID testing out of a vacant lot. And we can give you a few more examples. So the other side that we've done in the health department is we've sent out our inspectors to make sure that the kits that are being used is not something made in China that wasn't properly FDA or EUA authorized.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. That was for item 4. Item 5, same thing, just different provider.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Move to approve.
There are a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much for your work and doing this.
Mayor, Commissioners, I'd like to you're fine. I'd like to share something about item number 3. There's a lot of discussion as to the concession space construction. But that task order was for also the installation of this digital signage. It's our recommendation, but the city commission's prerogative to reconsider that item to make that distinction. And also in talking with, clarifying that with airport. Commissioner Galaski asked a question at the very end as to whether this would delay the construction of under item number 2. And my opinion at the time was, well, they'll just have to RFP or have the construction managed internally. But having spoken with airport department, the recommendation committee for item number 2 requested that a strong project manager be assigned to this construction due to the awardee being Sames Construction. There were mixed reviews as to whether.
Well, then be careful what you wish for, because we can reconsider item number 2 as well.
Well, I just think that needs to be shared with the city commission. I don't think it was shared before. So if the commission would like, it can, it would just have to be reconsidered. The motion would have to be based or made by the person who had won the.
I'll move to reconsider item 3.
The other, one other component to that is that
We'll discuss number 3, but there was a motion made by.
I move to reconsider item number 3.
3, which is the signage and the construction management?
Correct.
So then reconsider number 2, given,
Let's
Not yet.
first.
Motion is for number 3 right now.
second.
A motion and a second to reconsider item 3. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right.
And is there,
To also reconsider number 2, because I think it'll influence then, number 3.
is that a motion?
Yes, sorry, yes.
Well, we have to still pending.
Motion on.
Well, this is just for it to be reconsidered.
Item 3.
Item 3, yes.
Okay, but your point is because there's 2 items?
And they're contingent upon each other. I want to at least offer the option to have it revived. If it needs to be revived, it needs to be revived. If not, then we'll continue with item 3 that has been revived, the discussion.
Okay, but the purpose of reviving item 3 is what?
To award the signage portion only. That's what was my intention when I made the motion.
Okay, that's my understanding.
Discussion about that,
Yes.
right? Okay, we can do that.
So based on that, I'll make a motion that we award the signage portion of this contract to Garber LLC.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to award the signage portion of this task order to Garver
Only, right? Correct.
only, which is 40-something thousand, I believe.
Okay, so then may I ask, and this goes.
And this will be in the discussion.
Yeah, to Commissioner de Los Santos, if you feel that, that staff should not need assistance in managing the project for the build out of the space, then why is it that they're not capable to put the signs or like to do signage?
That would be the same thing like the BRO signage that we're talking about. Do we have departments that can build those? We probably do. But that's something we're going to contract out for. So this is the same thing. It's another sign. If we're contracting out the BRO signs at Billy Mitchell and at the front of the airport, I have no problem contracting this sign out. And this is about, my concerns are about the project management. Is that we're talking about somebody watching the construction of a restaurant for all intents and purposes.
Okay, so
It's the project management of the signage, correct?
Correct.
Another project management.
right.
No, this is installation, or is it just management of?
Project.
Management of the installation, digital signs.
I did put up TV screens.
200.
So they are not performing the work, the installation work.
NetSync, y'all awarded to NetSync at almost 250,000 for the digital signage of the airport only. Then there's B Metro.
Number 3 is just for the construction management of those 2 projects.
So I want to put something
Okay,
on.
then.
There's discussion.
Yeah, then I'll be withdrawing my motion.
Yeah, it's like if I go buy a sign and then I have to pay somebody to make sure that that's what we're doing?
See.
More.
Construction management.
In other words, we approved the installation of digital signage back in September. We had some questions at the time, like how quickly it would pay for itself. et
Yeah,
cetera, et cetera.
I remember it was a good presentation.
But now this is to pay somebody to
to make.
I'm withdrawing that motion, and I'm not sure why this came back to us then.
Can I ask a question?
It was just for my clarification, that all the discussion previously was on the change management for the concession space construction. But there was two projects to manage. So I just wanted to be clear that that motion was in fact to deny the project management services for both projects and not just one. That's the only reason why.
Just in case we're willing to pay somebody to watch the.
So the project manager is gonna observe
Gonna make it cute.
or what, hanging the signs, but they're also gonna project manage the construction of the space.
That was the original proposal. And then there was discussion as to why the city commission didn't want to provide a project manager for the construction of the space, but there really was no discussion as to the signs. My recommendation for reconsideration was so that we can make it clear that that also encompassed not providing management services for the signs as well.
So these are the LED screens and.
That is correct.
System with.
Yeah. Which require wall penetration, electric installation, refinish, wireless connectivity. Again, having Garver and as the on-site rep for the city of Brownsville guarantees that, you know, the product that we delivered, the $70 million terminal, is not damaged by a 130.
Imagine, Francisco, that whoever you're contracting is a professional and they do have a bond. I don't think it's gonna be my son going into your $70 million building, putting up a TV crooked.
Right.
Imagine it's a professional company.
Definitely. And that's why it went through an RFP process, an evaluation committee did all the scoring, and then it was recommended to the city commission to award the contract. However, we need to.
It sounded to me like you were trying to say, if we don't approve this, it's gonna be crooked or they're gonna break a wall.
No, but
It sounded like to me.
But it's like you have a guarantee or a warranty, ¿sí? De tanto tiempo, sorry, of so much time, entonces lo van a hacer a lo mínimo, ¿verdad? Lo que tienen que hacer, y a lo mejor con otra persona, pues te lo aseguran más.
But then by the same token, if something's wrong, who do we go after? The project manager or the guy who actually installed it? Now we've got two people to chase.
I think it's just really overpriced. You're talking about $35,000 a month roughly for a half part-time guy there on site to review everything and the draws and everything. It just seems way overpriced. That's all. I think that service is definitely needed. I don't think we can do it in-house. I think some of us have done construction projects, and this is something that's, I mean, to ensure quality and ensure you're not getting screwed, have someone verify, and that's fine. But I just think it's really overpriced.
Yeah, because typically, and I think that's the issue. I can terms. I think the premise though is typically project management pays for itself, or construction manager pays for itself when it's competitively. So we understand. Yeah, no, the sticker shock. I think we understand, and I think what the point that I would make generally is to not throw the baby out with the bathwater in terms of there's a time and a place at times where project management makes sense. I think for us, I can see the concerns. For example, for ARPA, you're talking about big dollar projects at 3%, not a hard sell, especially when we don't want to scale up staff for, that short run of projects. And there's other more sophisticated projects, same thing, an art center or a convention center or things of that sort. So we can understand the concerns. So I think that, I don't know that we're going to overly sell this. I don't want to leave staff hanging. I think my perspective is that we understand the concerns, right? The pricing concerns. I just would also emphasize that the project management, we've only used it seldomly, kind of here and there. I've seen it the most with the airport, ARPA. But typically there's a time and a place, right? Where the value is not difficult to define and to make a part of the project. So, I mean, whatever the case.
Well, to move this,
yeah.
We've already talked this to death. Commissioner, you had.
I withdrew my motion, and I'd like to make a new one to reject.
Both projects.
Correct.
So, and it's
On management.
Manage the construction one.
Are they gonna have to look for someone else once again? So
I'm not sure what the strategy is. Are you going to delay the project to go out for RFPs for project management, or are you just going to continue with the item 3 and do it internally?
So Francisco, one of the reasons I asked this question, which I think is important, was Commissioner Galansky asked, would this have the stoves and the ovens and everything? And I think the answer was yes.
Yes.
So just a kitchen alone is probably gonna cost them $100,000? Right?
On the equipment,
Yeah,
yeah.
just a quick, I mean, and I'm
That was
keeping it
on
low.
two.
I'm keeping it low. So if this is 400,000, we're down to, I mean, from 500, we're down to 400,000. So they're actually charging close to 50% to manage it. I just think the number doesn't make sense.
I understand, and if I may add two final points, is that the evaluation committee recommended to the city commission awarding this contract to Sames with the premise internally with procurement to have a strong construction management team.
We're going to revisit that next too.
Garver has been proven over time. As you know, during the last city commission meeting of December, I brought to you the phase 3 additional days and additional construction management services. And even with Sean here on board, with Mr. Walker and myself, we still relied heavily on Garver, that contractor on check. And well, we know what happened, right? We have an extension of that. So if the city commission wants, it's your prerogative, as you said. I just wanted to add that it pays for itself at the end of the day.
Are we not using Garver today
I'm sorry?
for anything at the airport?
Yes, we are.
But it does not cover this corner of the airport.
Correct.
And I think, Francisco, with all due respect, I think we're well aware of all the facts and the ramifications of our decision as well as the costs. And I think we've considered, in case you couldn't tell, we consider it at length already. So thank you.
There was only one point that I don't think was covered, is that the second lowest bid was another $270,000 more than this contract. So,
Project management.
no, for construction.
Oh, construction.
Instead of Sames.
Correct. Correct.
So who will project manage the construction if it's not this,
We don't, I don't think we can do it internally. We just, I don't know how we would,
yet to be determined?
so we would have to RFP or something for another project manager.
I mean, it's been well over a year already, so I'm not sure we lose much to do it.
There's co-ops.
Yeah. Oh. All right, so house cleaning, Victor,
Yes, I was just about to say.
Made a motion to reject both.
Right.
do we need a motion to reject both?
Well, and that was my point, because it got reconsidered, so we could talk about it.
He withdrew his motion to reconsider.
No.
No. And that was my point I was gonna make. He didn't.
After we approved the reconsider, I made a motion to award just the signage portion. That's the motion I withdrew.
Okay,
Your motion is to reject all.
Correct.
Do we need a motion?
On number 3, to reject all of number 3, the construction, project management, and the signage management.
it had already been,
No.
it had already
Right,
failed.
it got reconsidered. We reconsidered it so we could discuss it. We're starting fresh.
Okay,
There's an item that says, consider an action to authorize.
okay.
There's a motion to not authorize staff to award that contract.
Number 3.
Number 3, yes.
Good, how are you doing? Training number 6?
I second.
Yes, Lupe. So you're making a motion to reject?
Yes.
And there's a second from Commissioner Galansky.
Correct.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes as if.
We have an issue with number judgment, not at the moment. We just.
Yes, I think so. I think we should. Because if staff is telling us that they don't have the manpower to oversee the project, then shouldn't we at least table the bid so that no one's in limbo?
What if you open the bid later and it comes in at a higher price?
You can't, I don't think you can do that.
No, it will expire January 19th.
Go back.
So the bid will,
19th.
which means,
Oh, so we're gonna have to table, I mean, it's gonna be tough, right? Because we don't have.
Right. At this point, if I may, at this point, there's an award for the downstairs concession space. It's been approved. The question was from Commissioner Galansky, will the rejection of number 3, the project management services, delay it? It's going to delay it because now the airport has to go and RFP it out. But that wouldn't negate the award of the contract.
it would or it would not?
Would not.
In other words, the contract's been awarded.
Right.
So it just, the reason that we were asked to consider construction managers because whoever the committee was recommended that there be a construction manager.
Correct.
Basically. So this is to offer this up, Victor. We could potentially, within the window of time of the bid life cycle, there are cooperatives that have pre-bid project management services. We use co-ops a lot. What we could do is look at the co-ops that are membership driven, state operated. We use them by board, that kind of thing. There are some that have project management pre-bid and see if we can negotiate with project management firms that are already pre-bid there and see if we can arrive at a better fee if they'd be interested in overseeing this project. That would be an alternative to where we don't have to let the bid expire, let staff work with purchasing and see who's out there. And if we could get that fee to a more acceptable percentage, that's an alternative that I would offer, because I think that's pretty quick. Again, it takes away the 3 months, the month of procurement that we have to go through an RFP. And it's also, an RFP is more rigid. When you do an RFP, you have to go through the criteria. You can't negotiate only with the bidder that you choose. When you go through a procurement, through a cooperative, you're able to negotiate more flexibly with those firms because you didn't operate the bid. The bid was operated by the sponsor of the bid.
And
so that's another advantage.
The construction award was to Sames, right?
Sames.
It's an engineering firm.
They're construction also.
Yeah, but they're an engineering firm.
And project management.
Yeah.
Yeah, but do you want the same firm to be project manager themselves? No. It's like letting them.
Just looking at the sophistication of the contractor, because typically, do you need somebody to oversee a professional contractor that's getting paid $500,000 for 1,400 square feet?
But this is owner representation that we're talking about. In other words, they're looking out for our interests, not their own. Because if you put a project manager that's on their payroll, who are they really looking out for?
Sure.
So this is owner representation. But again, that's the only alternative that I'm just thinking through. If we look at co-ops, let's see what's out there, not Garver, obviously, and then see if we can bring somebody back at 3 to 5%, which is typically what's deemed competitive.
I don't see the harm in doing something like that.
That's an alternative again, because I'm just going off of staff feels that we're going to have to go back and refit it to get a stronger vendor. It might be a higher cost too, as they're explaining what the numbers were.
See,
we have to kind of consider what's the best angle here.
One other point I want to make on this though, and you all have heard me say this before, as a commissioner, I need to be able to make an informed decision. And now after we've approved number 2, we're hearing, well, we only recommended number 2 in anticipation of having somebody to watch them because we don't have 100% confidence in them. Is there anything in the packet on attachment specifically for 2 that says recommending Sames with the caveat that there be project management to oversee them?
No, so what I would say to that is when the project committee evaluates, you have to be very careful because it has to be a criteria that is numeric, it's formulaic, but any commentary that's typically limited to the notes that the committee keeps, that purchasing keeps, because bid is a sealed process. We also have to be very careful with what we say about the prospective vendors because we don't want to be disparaging anybody or making it appear there's a problem when there really isn't, because we've already come up with a solution that we feel will be acceptable for the project. So I think to the degree the staff has disclosed, they're disclosing it now, but in terms of how it can be shared outside of the sealed bid process, I think that's the only sensitivity. Once that project is awarded, all those notes are public information that can be a bit more openly shared. But at this stage in the award process, typically you got to be more sensitive with how much you're sharing from that perspective. In terms of commentary about a company that's outside of the formula of 10 points for experience with X projects, local, that kind of thing. And I would also add that because of the uniqueness of the project, it's a restaurant, but it's a restaurant within an airport, right? That's a little bit more modern. You typically may also deal with the market of, are you going to get somebody from out of the region that has a lot more experience in these projects and airports? Maybe you won't. So as a trade-off, you say, we're going to go with this firm that maybe doesn't have all the airport restaurants under their belt, but we feel has enough experience. But if we can compensate it with another, project management component. So those are some of the factors that I would just share. I wasn't in the meetings, but that's kind of where the sensitivity of what we share from those committee evaluations has to be, just from a liability, and Victor can speak to that. It has to be very sensitively managed.
I would think then that being the case, then it would be more appropriate, in my opinion, put up the project management as the first agenda item. And then if it fails and you're not comfortable with awarding the contract, then withdraw that agenda item before we ever approve it. I think that would be the smarter way to approach
Yeah,
it.
the sequencing perhaps could be better. Yeah, that makes sense.
Good.
Okay, I think we're good for now then. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Our next item is board appointments. Item 1, consideration and action on resolution number 2021-097 to appoint 2 members to the Transit Advisory Committee, Multimodal Transportation Transit, and this was tabled from the December 14th, 2021 regular meeting.
Good evening. I'm Jenny Garcia, the Assistant Director for Multimodal Transportation. As mentioned, this item was tabled last month. We are still seeking 2 new members to appoint for the Transit Advisory Committee. We have 0 applicants at this time. We will be doing a marketing push and advertising more in order to appoint somebody to this committee. So at this time, we still have 0 applicants.
And this is for B Metro?
For B Metro.
Can a commissioner be on there?
I'm not sure, but I can find out for you.
Commissioner Gillespie, you might.
Gone to a few.
I was gonna say you'd be a good board member for this.
I love to go to board meetings.
But I think there should actually be more writers also.
Well, yeah, but if there's nobody applying.
Right.
Anyway,
But that only fills 1 spot, yes.
Again, this may just be a housekeeping question for this one and the next one. Should these still be labeled as 2021 if they didn't get approved in that calendar year? Or should the resolution numbers be updated since we're now in 2022?
I think for keeping track of it, with our city secretary's office, it's memorialized as just a resolution number. So it's when it should have been, and because it was tabled and as you track them through the year, it's better for record management.
in other words, it hasn't been closed yet. It's an open matter from 2021.
Yeah, I just know if they would told me it was approved on this resolution and I see 2021, I'm going to go back to meetings for 2021 looking for it and never find it.
Right.
And I noticed also on the resolutions right now, it shows approved December 14th, 2021. So we'll need to update that before those get signed.
All right.
So it was tabled, but does it remain tabled? If there's no motion to untable it, it remains tabled until the next one.
Well, there's no applicants though, unless you have any applicants or anybody willing to serve, I think it needs to stay there, unfortunately.
Okay.
If there's no motion on table, it just remains tabled.
Commissioner Gillespie, you can consider if nobody else applies for the next meeting.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 2, consideration and action on resolution number 2021-093 to appoint 1 member to the Brownsville Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, Multimodal Transportation Mobility. And this is also tabled from the December 14th, 2021 regular meeting.
Good evening, Mayor, City Commissioners. My name is Frank Gudino, I work with the Multimodal Transportation Department, and we are here to fill the vacancy for the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. It was tabled at the last City Commission meeting. We do have applicants, but we do not have any new applicants since the last meeting.
Where are the, oh, there they are, okay. So what was the reason for tabling this? Were we looking for somebody from a particular district or?
Yeah.
Okay.
District what?
One.
We have a couple people from one on there already.
One.
No, those are the applicants.
The applicant.
Is Ben Del Angel eligible even though he's on Parks and Rec?
I believe the City Commission discussed at the last meeting that they're allowed to be on 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll nominate Ben Del Angel. Benjamin.
I'll move withdraw from the table first.
Oh, yeah.
Got to do that.
We have a motion to withdraw from the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. For clarification though, whose appointment is up? Because all the expirations, the soonest one is 12/20/22.
The vacancy came from the changes to the ordinance that were approved on December the 14th.
Expand the board to.
Right. We removed we removed the city employees and added a community member.
Oh, I can't tell who the city employee is on here.
I have an updated template.
Okay. Oh my gosh, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll leave it.
Well, who hasn't appointed?
I think North is up.
So Yvette Bella resigned?
Yes.
Hi.
She resigned back in April, and Mr. Sayas was appointed in July.
Right, okay.
I think we looked at it last month and saw there's no representation from District 1 currently on there, and that's what we suggested, or 4.
Pedro, you appointed, Raul, right?
I appointed some. Don't want me to appoint.
Commissioner Gonski, if you have an appointment, it makes sense.
I should myself.
He's not from my district, but Ben Delanquet, I think, would provide good input.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for Ben Delanca. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3, consideration and action on resolution number 2022-003 to appoint one new member to the Greater Brownsville Incentives Corporation Board of Directors to fill an existing vacancy, City Manager's Office.
Is there an existing vacancy or we have
Yeah, I'm
a vacancy?
fine.
You already resigned?
I'll
At the last meeting. I think we noted that at the last meeting.
Yeah, it says here he resigned.
Yeah, so, I'd like to resign from GBIC and appoint Gerardo Gonzalez.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for Gerardo Gonzalez. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes.
Oh,
Item 4, consideration and action on resolution number 2022-004 to appoint one city commission member to a joint City of Brownsville, Brownsville ISD, Gladys Porter Zoo Project Committee, City Manager's Office.
And I can speak to this item if you like, since city manager's out of the room. We found out over the holidays that BISD has appointed their 3 members to this joint committee. And when we made our initial appointments, one of the questions was if they're going to appoint their chair, it would be appropriate that the mayor served on our representative body. We did find out that the chair of the BISD board has been appointed. I've spoken to Commissioner Tetra, who's agreed to step aside. So that'll create a vacancy to allow us to appoint the mayor so that the boards are balanced out. So with that, I'd recommend, or I'd nominate the mayor to serve on this position.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. motion
And I have one question, Counselor, on the last item, and I apologize I didn't ask it then. I noticed in the resolution, it talks about the term starting January 1st. I was just curious if that's because of standard language somewhere, bylaws, and does that impact those that we appointed in the fall? Because that language just looks odd where it says January 1 of the year appointed. Means if I appointed somebody in November of 2021, does that backdate their term to January of 2021?
Absolutely not, no.
Okay.
Oh, just because I think the way the system had been set up before was to have all board members be reappointed or appointed January 1st.
Okay.
But because of different reasons, they kind of get staggered, but.
Yeah, just that caught my eye this time because I didn't see it before. Thank you.
Our next item is executive session. I'll read the items. Item 1, closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, consultation with attorney, and Section 551.087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations, to deliberate financial or other incentives to a prospect in connection with Project Converge, City Manager's Office. Item 2, closed session pursuant to Texas 551.071 and 551.087 to deliberate financial or other incentives to a prospect in connection with Project Renew, City Manager's Office. Item 3, closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071 related to pending litigation. City of Brownsville, Raymond Harris, defendants appellants versus Juan Richard, plaintiff appellee. Case number 13-21-0219-CV, 13th Court of Appeals, Corpus Christi, Texas.
Do you have any motions to go into executive session?
So moved.
A motion in the second. Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, then adjourn to executive session.
It is now 7:01 PM and the city commission will go into executive session.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Got a motion, is there a second? Motion and a second, any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. We stand adjourned. Y'all have a good night. Thank you.
There being no further business to come before the city commission, upon the duly made motion, the meeting has adjourned at 8:02 PM.